Hello and welcome to Unfudge Your Marketing. This is a show where I chat with business owners and leaders about their marketing mistakes, mishaps, and things that just didn't go quite as planned. But most importantly, we talk about the lessons learned for you. I am your host. I'm Kristi Mitchell. I'm a marketing strategist, and I love working with mission-driven, client-centered service providers who are passionate about the work that they do and the clients that they serve, but marketing just gets in the way. They've typically built their businesses on referrals and word of mouth, and they know in order to grow and have a greater impact, they need to finally think more strategically about their marketing. Today, I am so excited to welcome Dan Bennett as my guest. With over 16 years of experience in professional video production, Dan has journeyed from working with Fortune 500 giants like Harley Davidson and Bud Light to founding Hot Sauce Video, helping remarkable people look and sound great on camera. His mission? To level the playing field for smaller businesses, helping them shine on camera just as brightly as the big dogs with big budgets. Dan's expertise spans a diverse portfolio, including projects for iconic brands like Camaro and Nerf, as well as in-depth involvement in government contracting with a splash of some film and television work as well. This rich background fuels his commitment to equipping entrepreneurs, professionals, and creators with the skills to look and sound their best in front of the lens. At Hot Sauce Video, Dan has pioneered transformative tools like Hot Sauce Studio, designed to unlock the power of video content for business growth, and Hot Sauce Editing, which serves creators and companies by solving their pain points in post-production through a monthly subscription video editing service. His philosophy is simple yet profound. Entrepreneurs are inherently excellent. Dan's role is to unveil this excellence, enabling his clients to captivate new audiences with their impactful stories. Hello, Dan. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Sometimes when I hear an intro like that, I'm looking for the person you're talking about. Like, how long has this guy been around?
I know, that's you. That's quite an impressive bio. I loved reading it. It was so fun.
Yeah, the journey's been fun as well. Doing a lot of that big work, much of it was unfulfilling, and doing the work we do now, it's really easy to sleep at night. So that journey from the corporate days to how we help people now has been really fun.
I love that. Oh, that resonates big time. Awesome. Well, before we kick off our conversation, I always like to share how I met my guests. So today we are giving Chris Ward a shout out for introducing us. Yeah, anything you want to say if Chris is checking in?
She's incredible. Yeah, win the hour, win the day. I like when someone is super, almost hyper focused on their brand and what they do, and they don't deviate from it too far. Because then you end up
Yes.
with ridiculously professional people who do a really good job and actually move the needle. And Chris is definitely one of those people.
Yes, Chris is awesome. Great,
Yeah.
great. Well, thank you, Chris, for introducing us and making this conversation happen.
Thanks, Chris.
So, when we were talking about you coming on the show, you shared a little bit about a story with me, but I would love to dive into kind of that experience that you had, how it went, what went wrong, what you learned from that experience. So, where would you like to get the conversation started? We're going to be talking about a misaligned agency relationship, you said. So, where were you at in your business when you hired that provider and what happened?
We were definitely at the beginning of some growth. And so there's always a little bit of a desire to kind of fuel the growth when it's happening. You feel some momentum and you want to put anything you can behind it. Um, and it may have been a little bit of a premature hire, but there was definitely some, we can accomplish this, we can help you get there, we can take advantage of this thing that you're already doing. And all the words were really, really good. So another part of my background is I have, been bootstrapped and solo for most of my career. So there's always a little apprehension of hiring outside of the professionals I knew that I hired contractually to do, video projects and stuff like that. And unfortunately, this is one of the earlier outside hires, and a lot of lessons learned, and a lot of things that I could share with other people along the way, including right now. So when we were talking about marketing, I've done my own marketing my whole career up until only the last year, where we've developed some internal talent. But also, I've been involved in helping create content with people in the video format that's going to directly plug into their marketing. So I have to be really acutely aware of making sure we don't create any friction in something they already have going on.
Mm.
And so I wanted help, with a lot of those things and kind of ramping up that growth. Um, One of the first things that I noticed was kind of a yeah, but type attitude. And it was almost
Mm.
everything I brought up as like real genuine concerns that I had about our direction, where we're going, how we might be able to accomplish some of these things, was like, yeah, but like, we're going to do this. And you pay someone, you trust them, you want their professional input. And it's like, okay. Um, and then I guess a side note that maybe I should have prefaced with, is that there was some in kind involved in this relationship. That works great for some people. In my history, it hasn't worked out the greatest. So tread cautiously when you're trying to unfudge your marketing, when there's in kind and that sort of trade type thing. We Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, and so just to clarify for listeners, by inclined you mean in kind, you're referring to like a trade for service type situation.
Yeah. A chunk
Okay,
of our work together was a trade for service. Yeah. Um,
gotcha.
and the value was there on paper, so it made sense.
Hmm.
So, and this is a light to shine on my team, not myself. We're really, really good at what we do. So we like kept up our end of the bargain and smashed it out of the park. And the other side wasn't kept up. And so not only
Uh,
was there the kind of disconnect of like, oh man, but it also left some of my team a little bit injured. Even though they got paid for the work they did and all of that, they saw me kind of take an L and they were like, oh man, we did all this stuff and we kept our word, and the other side really didn't come through.
yeah,
And then we had to kind of enter into like a grace and humility lesson learned phase where, because part of it was in kind or trade, there really wasn't any kind of contractual obligation for certain components. It was just words, recorded on video words, but still just words. And
yeah,
so we had to bow out, take the loss, and move on, and try to make every lesson we learned during our time together with that person, small agency, uh, you know,
yeah.
get what you can out of it, lesson learned type of
Right,
thing. Yeah.
right. So I want to go back to what you said about, you felt through conversations like they were like, yeah, but we're going to do it this way. And I think that unfortunately that ends up being an experience. I think back to past guests I've had on this show with
Yeah.
similar, it's like I just didn't feel like they listened to me. I didn't feel
Yeah.
like they took my feedback and my ideas and my concerns seriously, and they were just kind of going about their normal process.
Yeah. Growth in business is a two-edged sword, and that doesn't always mean that the other side is bad. It just means careful, both sides are sharp, right? So when I think about that, a trade-off that you have in business as you grow is you have to, for better or worse, trust other people, trust professionals, trust your team, whoever else might be involved in the growth, because the only way to avoid that is to learn a whole new skill set yourself, keep doing it yourself, spend a bunch more hours trying to figure out how to run, go high level and this whole funnel and all these things we were working on, and it's like my technical background and the skill set I already have lends me to be able to absolutely go in and learn those things and operate proficiently in a short amount of time. But I was like, that's counterintuitive to this growth I want. I need to be focusing on these things only Dan can do.
Yeah.
And that causes that other side of the sword to occasionally be something that cuts you a little bit. I wouldn't change a thing, though. I definitely want to be on the record saying I wouldn't go back and change it. We learned so much from it. And our next hire in that department after that, which was a year and a half later, was really well thought out, really meticulously
Yes.
vetted, and has yielded great results for us. So I wouldn't trade the fact that it kind of went down sour.
Yeah. Well, good for you. That's not an easy thing to say. And I think it definitely
Yeah.
takes a certain mindset to say, okay, we learned from this and it helped position us better for the future.
Yeah, a lot of my thoughts, like in life, my thoughts go to my family, and in business, my thoughts go to my team. And I was thinking a lot of them, like what can this make us better at? What can we learn from this? We even made a couple tiny little internal training components out of some of the stuff that we did get out of the time with that person. So yeah, we were definitely like, my grandpa, my mother's father growing up was a hunter, and he was definitely one of those guys that's like, don't waste any part of the animal. I kind of thought of that sort of process of like, let's get every piece we can out of this thing, because yikes. Yeah.
Yeah, a little more graphic when you're thinking in terms of hunting. But I love that. That's a really great analogy. I love that. So I'm curious, Dan, when you kind of, it sounds like there were some red flags at that start, right? When it was like, okay, but I just don't feel like they're listening to me. How did things kind of play out where you really realized, like, was it just kind of not getting the deliverables that were
Yeah.
agreed upon, or like what kind of made the whole thing blow up?
Yeah, there's a little consultative and then deliverables on a timeline, and we were crushing ours because all we did was enter in. My part was handled by me individually, and the in-kind trade was handled by my team, which just went into our client portal like any other client would. So it became part of our work and got delivered. So a little bit consultative, and then non-delivery is when it started to be like, It reminded me of the old days when I was working more for corporate and some government contracting and stuff, where everything from the other side would always be like, now, cross every T, dot every I, da 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 da. And then it would come to, hey, it's paycheck time. And, oh, yeah, we'll pay you. Hold on, and you'd always have to chase this pay or be on a 90-day net with the government or whatever. And it's like, man, you guys wanted everything fast and right and perfect. And then when it comes to the reward part, it's like kind of slow. So yeah, there was a little bit of reminiscence of early in my career of like, oh, I don't want to chase these deliverables for the rest of my life. I think kind of poke and prod and try and get this thing going. And once I realized that it was just delay, deny, I was like, okay, we're just going to cut this loose and call it good.
Yeah. Oh, that's such a tough pill to swallow. That's such a challenge. Like how long do you push and when do you just kind of cut your losses and say, okay, we're moving on?
Yeah, because there's no right answer. I think you can look back and be like, I think we did a good job of that, but you don't know. And you can even look at past experience or even being in the exact situation sometime previously, and you still aren't given an exact timeline answer. Or is this person maybe just lagging a little bit and needs another poke, or are they really ghosting you? I'm a relatively empathetic person. Benefit of the doubt is in the top 5, so I'm always trying to reach for that first. And yeah, I don't know. There's no answer for that one, at least as far as I am aware. You just kind of have to go through it. And yeah.
For sure. I think it's definitely unique to each business owner and what that relationship is like with the vendor. I'm curious for you, taking you back to that experience, what was your thought process in terms of like, how long am I going to push and when am I just going to really, it sounds like you did shift your mindset to say, okay, this is what it is. And here's what we can learn. And let's really maximize our learning from this and move forward.
It was definitely kind of like week to week. And I will say that I hold the boundaries of my team really, really tight. And then for myself, sometimes, I don't do as good of a job. Because part of it was in trade, I was able to hold that boundary for them I would normally hold and kind of extend it across in front of myself too. So I went a little quicker towards cutting the cord than maybe normal, because it was like, hey, inquiry. Hey, I have a boundary and I'm going to share it with you now. And if we could just have a conversation, it's not like a end all be all right now, but could we have a conversation? We've also delivered and you've gotten a result, and it just so happens the work we do, our results are tangible. You can see how good someone looks and sounds now on camera. So like your results there and you're flaunting it around town, could we, so it probably happened a little bit quicker, and holding boundaries was kind of my lesson there too, of I need to hold them for myself as a founder, just as tight as I hold them for my crew. So yeah, it was probably 2 weeks into benefit of the doubt, asking questions, and their career happened to also include speaking engagements. So I knew they traveled a little, and like, a couple days, got a hotel stay, a couple days, that's a week. Okay. And then after a little bit of that, it was like, wow, you shouldn't have said you could do it if you can't do it. So,
right.
Yeah.
Right. It sounds like you were really thoughtful and generous with, I know that struggle. I mean, not the same exact situation, but I can certainly think back to situations where you're waiting on someone to get back and waiting and you kind of go back and forth. And I think that really takes a lot of thought and intentionality to say, okay, now I'm going to put a boundary in place and then I'm going to enforce it.
Yeah.
That's not an easy thing to do.
It's not, and, full transparency, I'll say 2 things. One, this is like 2 years ago, so I'm well into my career. I'm in my 40s. I've been doing what I do a long time. I've got some horror stories, so it's a little bit easier that far into your career to be like, "Oh, it's been a while since something like this happened," but, like, okay. And then
Yeah.
the second part, full transparency, is, I mean, believe me, privately, I was cussing up a storm, in my own head. And I'm just like, every time, like I went through whining and crying about it to myself and letting myself have all the feelings and emotions and processing through. And that was definitely happening behind the scenes. My team didn't know, client didn't know, but
Yeah.
it was definitely, I was being human the whole time too. So I gave myself that grace of, kind of sitting with it before I moved on. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I appreciate you sharing that so transparently, because I think that is important for everyone to remember, right? How we're handling it on the inside and how we're handling it with our team and our clients, right? There's like different stories to be told in each of those scenarios.
absolutely. Yeah. And I love the work you're doing because those stories need to be told. We're all on independent journeys, but there's through lines in entrepreneurship that a lot of us can grab onto because everyone's experienced something along the through line that we're talking about today. So thank you for the work you're doing too, because
Yes.
we need more real conversations.
Oh, thank you. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it's an interesting. I won't go into all the details of how the podcast and the show started, but yeah, it just felt like one conversation after another with prospective clients and then some people in my business network and I was like, we need to be telling these stories publicly. Like business owners need to hear this. Like there's so many lessons to be learned from other people's mistakes. And I remember I was talking to a business friend of mine. I was like, I had the idea like while I was on the call with her and I was like, but are people gonna be willing to talk about that? Like, are people
Yeah.
really gonna be willing to share their stories and, like, the mistakes that they made? Turns out they are, because 'cause we're, like, past episode 60 now. There's lots of people willing to share their stories.
Yeah. I was intrigued and excited. Again, I'm a veteran of sorts. So I know the power of this sort of thing, but still, I was like, oh, this is going to be refreshing because I'm an open book by nature. So, like, I want people to avoid any pitfalls I fell in because if I can point at it and you can miss it,
Yes.
that's great.
Right, right. So, actually, Dan, to that point, one thing I wanted to ask you, and I love and appreciate your perspective that you wouldn't change anything for the world. If you could go back again. And again, I always think of like, what can listeners take away from this conversation? Like, is there anything you would have done differently? Or were there things that you noticed that you should have maybe given more attention to? Just in terms of, again, I don't know. I know you don't want to rewrite your story, but for a business owner who might
Mhm.
be in a situation where they're vetting a marketing provider, what kinds of things do you think they should be listening for or asking?
Yeah. One thing for sure, and this many things in entrepreneurship and business and growth are duh type things. You get to an answer, you're like, oh, geez, it was in front of me the whole time, right? So, one of the components is kind of this. I mean, is kind of a duh type moment, and it's milestones. Like, if you pay someone 1,000, they pay you 1,000, and you're both doing something for each other, here's a milestone. And if we don't pass that
Mm,
milestone, my team doesn't do any more work. And
mm,
partially because of the trade and in-kind portion, and partially because of the excitement of a professional in this field I don't want to go learn, and this could really kind of help us keep this momentum going, maybe even add some fuel to the fire. I overlooked some of those things where even though it was a smaller project in the grand scheme of things, there should have still been a performance agreement because we run them with everyone else that hires us. Should have been a performance agreement with some milestones, and we would stop at a milestone if we weren't relatively even with their
mm.
milestone along the way. So, due diligence, um, best practices, don't let that stuff go out the window, even if it is kind of mundane and boring or irritating to have to do all the, best practices before you get going. Because in retrospect, that's one thing I would change is, and it might still not have avoided the problem completely, but looking back, I'm like, we did kind of like skimp on the onboarding and the, performance agreement part. And if we had some milestones, I could have held the boundary sooner.
Yes. Yeah, and I think that can be an easy thing to do, right? To be like, "Oh, well, this is a little different, so we won't follow the process here, and well, we don't need to sign that off," or yeah, that makes
Yeah,
a ton of
yeah,
sense.
yeah. You just nailed it. That was kind of the approach was like, and they're reputable.
Yeah.
So there was I did my homework, and I was like, man. So,
Right.
uh, yeah, do check the boxes. It's worth it every time.
Yeah. Well, and I love your point about the milestone aspect and having those agreed upon, like, okay, this work is going to be completed by this date and payments align. And, it's interesting because it actually reminds me of a client I worked with earlier this year, and they were a much different industry than I am accustomed to working with. They're in the commercial real estate space. And they were, especially as they were reviewing my contract and everything to work together, they were really on that aspect of like, okay, we need these check-in points, we need like those milestones and having payments, according to those milestones. And that was something totally different for me. Like, I had never had a client ask that. And it turns out my billing system doesn't work great for that type of work, but it at least gave us the point to have the conversation, right? To
Yeah.
talk about those expectations. And it was funny because she kept kind of like apologizing, like, I just really want to make sure we're on the same page. And I'm like, absolutely, I want to make sure we're on the same page too. So I think that that's something for business owners to consider too, right? Like, you might be asking for something that is out of the norm for that provider, and maybe they can't meet you exactly where you want to be, but at least if you can have an open, transparent conversation about it, I think that should help give you a little more peace of mind entering into that relationship.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always good to revisit the basics and communication. I mean, it's so cliche, but communication is the key in business, so much so. And it only becomes more important the bigger your business gets. So I love that even if the personality was apologetic, it was like, but we're still going to like do this. So
Yes.
sorry, but we need these. And that's just good business. I think taking care of each other and making sure everyone's on the same page is respect kind of personified.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, 1000%. So before we wrap up our conversation here, I'm curious, as you again look back to those early days of entering into that agreement, what was it, since you just said communication is key, what do you think about that in terms of that past experience and communication and the importance of it?
Um, I think clarity, we should always strive for in communication because you can communicate well and someone on the other side can be like, oh, got it. But it's worth that, like you just said, happened to you. I just want to make sure, it's worth revisiting. It's
Yes.
worth being clear. It's worth exploring alternative language or saying something a second time in a new way just to make sure. So I think
Mm,
clarity of that communication, because we communicated well and we served just like we would serve a full paying client. So the communication was there, but it being slightly different and in a new area we had never employed anyone in before, with the go high level and running campaigns and funnels. Like, I think there was some more clarity that could have been added to the mix there.
yeah.
And the other part too, I'm a sports fan. I'm originally from Michigan, so I'm a Detroit Lions fan. And I always make fun of like football games and stuff when I watch them, that announcers would be like, oh, they really got momentum now. And I've always questioned, is that real? Like, just because you got a couple plays in a row, does that mean you're more apt to score this time because there's momentum? I felt like the momentum of the growth we were having and wanting to capitalize on that might have clouded a little bit of that clarity that could have been in that
Mm,
communication. So in retrospect, take a beat, slow down, breathe. It's okay to, say sorry, but you need to tick all these milestones. We need to be on the same page. I
right.
could have done a better job of that. Yeah.
Interesting. Oh, I love the sports reference, that
Yeah.
tie-in.
Yeah, because I go back
Interesting.
and forth. I'm like, is momentum real? I don't know. It feels real, but is it? And
Yeah.
I know momentum was a part of my like, let's do this. I'm so excited. They're so good at what they do. Yeah.
Right. Right. Yeah. To get caught up in it. And yeah, momentum almost in a bad way.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. That's a really interesting point there. Dan, I really appreciate you coming on the show, sharing your experience, your obvious, all these lessons learned, and how you've really taken that and made better decisions for your business, and now sharing the story so other people can learn from it. I really appreciate all of your insights that you've shared. I always like to ask my guests, is there any last lesson learned or piece of advice that you want to leave listeners with?
Absolutely. So I get asked a lot when I'm on podcasts for specifically talking about video and how we help people show up in video and all those things. Because we deal with a lot of fear. We deal with a lot of people putting themselves out there. We deal with a lot of the human nature. And, I've been on shows where they're like, if there was a million people listening right now, what would you say? And in this case, it still applies completely directly. And that is give yourself grace. It's always the thing I say. Like, there's enough trolls, there's enough friction, there's enough going on in the world. We know it's cliche, but we're our own worst critics. Like, when you can force yourself to give yourself grace. And in this, even while I was experiencing it, I was eating my own dog food. Like, give yourself grace, dude. Everyone makes a mistake. Like, we delivered. We can feel really good about the fact that we delivered. Okay, good. Okay, company's good. Team was paid. We took a hit, but we're not going under. Like, okay, good. And tried to give myself grace as I moved forward. So anytime you're doing anything scary, whether it's putting yourself out on video or making a mistake and have to clean up the mess, give yourself grace.
I love that so much. That's a great note to end the show on. But very lastly, I don't want to forget to give you the chance, Dan, for people who may want to learn more about the work that you and your talented team do. How can they do that?
So years ago, I had a podcast and I was talking to someone else about podcasts, and they told me they had a URL to make everything easy. And I was like, oh, I'm going to do that. So years ago, I bought the URL danhaslinks.com.
Dan
So if you can
has
remember
links.
that, even if you're listening audio only, danhaslinks.com, everything
I
is
love
there. And we're called Hot Sauce Video. So if you look up that handle, it's that on all platforms. But yeah, Dan has links. You can find me
I
there.
love it. I love it. Super useful. Awesome. Well, thank you again, Dan, so much for coming on the show and sharing your experience with us.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me. And again, thanks for the work you're doing. We need more insight like this.
Awesome. Well, thanks again. Feel free to send me more guests who might have some bad marketing stories. And for all of our listeners, until next time.